Welcome to the Hangry Games Arena, where Kelly Brewster, the author of What's Eating You and host of the Hangry Games, is shaking up the weight loss world. She's providing you with tons of resources and helpful tips to obtain your long-term wellness and weight loss goals once and for all. The Hangry Games is recorded and produced at Open Space Studios.
Big shout out to my Hangry Game Nation. How are you guys doing? It is good to be back in the studio. I hope everybody's been having a really good week, having a good day today. I'm very excited that I'm here. It's been a great week. It has, as always, been super busy, but again, very blessed. I do want to send a little shout out today to our What's Eating You readers. Great response so far. I love that you guys are printing out the workbook on the Prep For It website. And in all sincerity, that makes the biggest difference in the world. When you do something like that and you start applying the principles that you are reading and learning about, it makes all the difference. I'm glad you guys are really, truly trying to sink your teeth into making changes for your long-term wellness and weight loss. It means the world. I am hoping that everyone has had an opportunity to do your takeaways this week. I did a little research on what the different calories are, maybe made some changes to your current eating plans, maybe some better choices and remove some of the empty calories. I know, I've been picking on the ding dongs. So I might give them a little break for a few weeks or go easy on them, but I'm not promising anything. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, I'll keep bringing them out to dry as much as possible. But we also had, we had the calorie podcast, which had a lot of great little nuggets in it. And then I hope you had the opportunity to listen to the podcast on the weight loss medications, the GBUs, which are the good, the bad, and the ugly. I always want to bring, I want you to get all of it. I want the positives, the negatives, everything to it. And so, and I want you to know the ugly parts of some of it, and some of it's uglier than others, right? But I encourage you, if you are on weight loss medications, don't put all your chips on the meds. It is truly imperative, and I know I mentioned this last time, but it's imperative to have the foundation or that base of the triad of treatment in place, something that's sustainable for you for the long haul, right? I mean, that's essentially what we're trying to do. We want to be in it for the long haul, and we want to be healthy for the long haul, right? Okay, so we are, this is the year, right? You finally, and I mean finally, decided to shed those pesky pounds that you've been carrying around seriously since the start of COVID. You vowed this was going to be the year. And of course, we know you didn't start on a Monday, right? And you definitely didn't start on New Year's Day. I'm hoping not anyway, right? So you're 1 week into this new eating plan, right? And you've got your exercise regimen underway and you're feeling good. I mean, great, really. Someone even at work made a comment that you chose the grilled chicken salad instead of that fried chicken sandwich from Popeyes, which I'm going to give you props for, okay? I'm just saying. And you wake up this morning with the great anticipation for your first weigh-in. And your palms may be a little sweaty. You're making sure to shed any of the unnecessary excess weight. Before you hop on the scale, you're taking off the extra clothes, you're taking off your slippers, you're taking off your eyeglasses if it's going to make a difference, right? Whatever it takes, it doesn't matter. Literally, your mind is like a batting cage of question after question after question going through your head. Should I weigh every day or should I weigh once a week? Is this the best time for me to weigh in? Will that Haagen-Dazs that I had last night rock my results? Side note, yeah. Does muscle weigh more than fat? Because I think I've gained more muscle this week. Should I weigh on this scale each time, or is it okay to weigh on different scales? All right, Kelly, what are we weighing on? I mean, really, no, what are we weighing on? You saw what I did right there, right? Okay, you heard it right. Today, we are going to be talking about weight, stepping up and addressing all of the questions you may have asked yourself as you're getting ready for that big dance each week. We're going to talk about how often to step up on the scale. Does muscle and fat weigh the same? And that sounds kind of an oxymoron, but we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about weight loss versus toning and an increase in your physical fitness. And of course, we're going to definitely hit some some talks about appropriate weight loss, what is for over a specific period of time, and of course, what's realistic, right? In all seriousness, we're going to exhaust this topic today. Weighing yourself can either be, and y'all know this, you guys know it, it's either going to be the highlight of your day or your week, or frankly, it is going to make you want to face plant into a confetti cake. If you haven't had a confetti cake, we'll talk later, but it makes you want to do that. If you've done all this work all week and you don't see the results when the numbers on the scale, it can be counterproductive. So we're going to definitely go over some do's and don'ts when it comes to weighing in. So without hesitation, we are going to get this party started. First and foremost, I think it is important to understand that when it relates, to weighing in and seeing weight loss, slow and steady still wins the race. And I think we as a society have become so accustomed to we're a microwave society. I mean, essentially, we get results at our fingertips, fast food, telemed, social updates in seconds. So it's really hard for us to wrap our minds around the fact that our bodies, frankly, are still slow cookers when it comes to the functioning as far as weight loss and our overall wellness. Now, if you are about 30 to 35 pounds overweight, losing that kind of weight can be honestly very overwhelming. It can be like, I just can't even put my mind around that, Kelly. It's almost discouraging just to think about it. But if you break this down into realistic goals, then it becomes far more obtainable. Theoretically, just think of it like this, and I talked about this at one of the previous podcasts. If you lose a half a pound weekly, right? And that's just using that small change approach that we talked about in a couple of podcasts previously. 1 year equates to 26 pounds, which is amazing. And losing a half a pound a week is so incredibly doable. And you can follow your eating plan, your exercise regimen, and you still have some opportunity to have some treat meals along the way. And if you would actually bump this up to 1 pound a week, still very doable, that turns out to be 52 pounds in 1 year. So for somebody that does have to lose between 30 and 35 pounds, you actually could reach your weight loss goals within the first year just by focusing on the first half to 1 pound each week. And once you reach the goals, start reaching for the next one if it's applicable to you, If that may be difficult to kind of just mentally process, I want to think about this another way. I want you to think, this was a great example. My sister told me this once. She said, if you've got 30 to 35 pounds to lose, a great way to think of this is I have 1 pound that I have to lose 30 to 35 times. So all I'm going to focus is on that 1 pound first. Got it? I'm working on the next one. Got it? I'm working on the next one. And so you're not focusing on the end result as much as you're focusing on where you currently are living. And it's reachable, right? It's a very reachable goal. This is where those small steps over time definitely produce really big results, right? So one of the biggest obstacles on a scale, maybe if you've lost like even 5 or even 10 pounds, depending on what you have to lose in that weight loss journey, you may not see the same results when you're looking in the mirror, right? So you get on the scale, you're like, ooh, 5 pounds. But then you look in the mirror, you're like, same old person. I don't see much change. I don't see anything going on. And you're like, if somebody comes up to you and they're like, hey, you look like you've lost some weight. Seriously, your face is starting to look thinner. Okay, so time out here, just so you know. Seriously, no one's ever looked in the mirror, right? No one has looked in the mirror and said, golly, my cheeks are looking a little chubby. I'm starting to look like a blowfish. I may have to drop a few pounds here, right? Or better yet, my turtlenecks are getting a little tight. It's time to tone down a little bit. No, we don't want to hear that our face is thinned out. You want to see weight loss everywhere. And certainly you'd rather see it right around the waist or even the hind area before your face and your neck, right? I mean, I know that I'm preaching to somebody out there. Believe it or not, when you start losing weight, the first percentage of weight loss that you lose is called visceral fat. Now, this particular fat is located around the organs, and although you may not necessarily notice the change at first, It's taking a significant stress off of the organs, which equates to more energy, and you just start feeling better. Hey, Kelly, I didn't feel like I could walk up and down the stairs without getting short of breath or easily out of just exertion. I just felt like I was exerting too quickly and just wasn't feeling right. And then you lose 5 or 10 pounds, and you're like, oh, I can pop up those stairs. It's not as big of a deal. And so part of that is not because you've just become physically fit in a week or two. Part of that is because you started to lose that fat around the around the organs, and that visceral fat is what's weighing those organs down to function appropriately is not there anymore or has started to decrease. So that makes a huge difference. It really does. And this, what I will say is this, another method that you could do in this situation to try to bank momentum, and that's important. You want some things in your life when you're on this journey, you want things that are going to help you in the positive side. And you want to bank all of these opportunities and things. So one of the things I tell my patients, especially if they do have a really high BMI, and I'm not going to tell them that they look thinner in their face when they come in to check up with me, I've actually told them, here's what I need you to do. I want you, if your first goal, let's say, is 25 pounds, I want you to go to one of the craft stores, Walmart, wherever, and I want you to get 25 marbles. And I want you to put those 25 marbles in one mason jar. And then I want you to put an empty jar next to it. And every time you get on the scale and you lose a pound, I want you to physically move a marble from the jar that's full to the jar that's empty. Let me just tell you something. When you can see the results, maybe not on your body initially, but you can see the tangible results being made, the motivator is incredible here. So, according to Healthline, we're going to talk about 5 basic rules to weighing in, which could actually be helpful in developing some consistent strategies for your weight loss goals. Okay. Now, according to this article, they recommend that you weigh in at least 1 time a week. Now, however, we're going to come back to this recommendation because there are some arguments that support daily weigh-ins, and we're going to talk about both sides of that coin. I do agree that 1 time a week weigh-in when you are starting your journey can definitely have its advantages. It really can. Simply because depending on what you ate the night before, what time of the month is it for you, or even if you've traveled, it can cause some daily fluctuations in the weight and your initial journey, and it can become discouraging if you're not seeing results right away. So set a same time. If it's going to be a Friday at 8 a.m., do every Friday at 8 a.m. Now, there is another rule of thumb, which is actually called the O'Connor method. And it does say that you want to weigh in first thing in the AM to make sure that you're getting accurate weigh-ins. Now, the body has rested. You may have gone to the restroom in the morning. It's allowed the body to go through all of this processing, cleansing, and restoring. It can also be negatively affected through the course of the day. If you started drinking water, if you started eating, even if your hormones have started fluctuating through the course of the day. So a morning weigh-in is probably going to give you the best bet. I've done this before. I've literally gotten on the scale first thing in the morning, go to the restroom, jump in the scale. Okay, I like what I see. Go have a cup of coffee, maybe have to go to the restroom again, get stuff ready. I haven't eaten yet. Haven't done anything. I've just had 1 cup of coffee. I can get on the scale and it's like a half a pound heavier or a pound heavier. And I'm like, this does not even just make a lick of sense. But so what you want to do is you want to remember, we want to bank positive momentum. So for you, if your weigh-in is going to show that you are seeing the best weight in the morning, do it in the morning. Now for you, if you like, what, Kelly, I find that when I weigh in the afternoon is when I see the best weight loss. That's fine too. These are not rules set in stone. These are just rules to kind of guideline, more like guidelines, right? Like Pirates of the Caribbean. Weighing in the same way each week is so very important. It is going to create a level of consistency that I think will allow you to get a better number for your overall wellness and weight loss. So if you're, and I know this, so if you weigh in your underwear and your bare feet each week, then make sure you're doing it the same way each time. Consistency allows you to really see the true numbers for what they are, and it could avoid getting you very discouraged, and we want to try to avoid that if we can. Another rule of thumb is to make sure that you're using the same scale each and every time you are doing your weigh-in. I almost feel like this is one of the most important rules, to be honest with you. At our office, we have 2 medical scales, one in each of our triage areas. And at one point, they differed as much as 2 pounds apiece. And so, because we would have patients like, no, I don't want to go to that triage. I want this triage over here. It's nicer. And so why? It's the same exact scale. Why isn't it the same way? I mean, somebody could have stepped on it differently, stepped off of it differently, caused some changes to the weights that are in the actual base of the scale. And so they do need to be calibrated routinely. Make sure you have a scale that's from a reputable brand too. I mean, this is kind of this little side note right here that I think is a good time to point it out. I am always one that my rule of thumb is to buy the middle of the road. And what that means is that your cheapest one, it ain't going to work. Ooh, I found it on one of these really cool websites that it's like $5 for the scale. Okay, just use the $5 for a cup of tea or something like that and put the money in your pocket, because that scale's not going to work. If you get one that's got all the bells and whistles, yeah, I mean, that's great that it can tell you what, oh, your body fat is blah, blah, blah today or whatever. I mean, that's fine, but you're paying for things that you probably don't need. So something in the middle of the road will absolutely do what you need it to do. And despite, how much you do spend on that scale, I don't care if you get the one that has the bells and whistles. I don't care if you get the one that's the middle of the road. Just make sure that it is calibrated appropriately so you do have those consistent weigh-ins. The last rule of thumb is a little bit more sensitive to talk about, and that's when not to weigh in. And for any individual that can be suffering from an eating disorder, a body dysmorphism, this can actually exacerbate the disorder significantly. Or if you're weighing in and it creates more anxiety for you, it creates discouragement for you for your long-term wellness and weight loss. If it's going to create a spiraling negative effect for you, I just don't want you to do it. Okay? It isn't necessary. I've lost plenty of weight in my lifetime, and I just got a scale in the last year. So technically, it's not something you have to do. It helps you. It creates a level of accountability. But if it's going to be counterproductive for you, if you do have a history of an eating disorder, if you do have some degree of body dysmorphism, then this is something that we definitely want to kind of avoid. What I want you to remember is anything that's going to create positive motivation, we want to try to implement this. Anything that can be counterproductive, we want to evaluate its necessity in your plan, and if it's going to validate where you are. And if it's not, then that's something we can carve out, right? What I don't want you to do is to open up your window in your backyard and sling that puppy right out the backyard. Just don't want you to do that, right? So we want to create positive momentum as much as possible. So when you do consider the reason why you should not weigh in, you need to consider if another part of this is, am I weight lifting? Am I building muscle mass? And am I toning up, and am I strengthening up? If that is the case, you are actually going to see a slower weight loss, but will probably be a notable reduction in inches. So in this particular respect, I am going to lean more towards doing body measurements, maybe at one measurement every 1 to 2 weeks. And this can be a little bit more time consuming, a little bit more burdensome, but it certainly is an alternative to actually doing a weigh-in, especially if you are doing a lot of weight, like a lot of a heavier weight training and things like that. I mean, frankly, you can be the same exact weight and you can actually look completely different and be in different sizes. When I was playing college volleyball, I was never a Barbie doll. We talked about this. I talk about it in the book. I was never that little skinny Barbie doll. I was the Amazon. I was in good shape. I was thin, but I was very muscular. And when I played ball, I was in a size 3 to 5, and I was 135 pounds. And then after I delivered my son, I was in a size 8 and 135 pounds. I was 135 pounds, but I was in two completely different sizes. So it does make sense that if you are going to be focusing on physical fitness, toning, strength training, that I do want you to avoid frequent weigh-ins because I think it's going to be a little discouraging for you. I actually had a patient that I spoke with today and I felt horrible for her. She was so discouraged. And I'm like, why? You're working out 4 days a week. You're doing phenomenal. And you still lost 4 pounds in like 6 or 7 weeks. I don't care about the scale. I don't care about it. I want somebody to feel good about where they are. She's like, everybody's been complimenting me. Everybody's been telling me I look so good. I said, you do. You do. Sometimes we're our own worst critic, and we need to stop that. We need to be nicer to ourselves, right? I think we should. So I want you, and one of the questions we talked about is, does muscle weigh the same as fat? And technically 5 pounds of muscle and 5 pounds of fat are the same. Okay. It's just 5 pounds is 5 pounds, right? Now, muscle may take up maybe the size of like a tennis ball, whereas, the 5 pounds of fat could be, the size of a watermelon possibly. But I will tell you this, that 1 liter of muscle can weigh about 2.3 pounds and 1 liter of fat can weigh 1.98. So there is a 0.6, is it 0.5? Yeah, I think, yep, a 0.5 pound difference between those two when you're looking at size. So just keep that in mind. I don't want anybody discouraged when they finish with this podcast today. Some individuals have even argued that, and we talked about this a little while ago, that daily weigh-ins are better. And honestly, I actually relate to both sides of this coin. I do. I like the weekly weigh-ins. I think that's a great place to start when you have when you're in your initial part of this eating plan and exercise regimen. But I think once you're in a maintenance standpoint, a daily weight is definitely not going to hurt you. When you do realize that 2/3 of the people that lose weight will regain all of the weight back within 2 years, 2 out of 3 people are going to gain all of their weight back within 2 years, then weighing in daily for a maintenance plan could be very effective for maintaining the weight. So I see the argument there for sure. I mean, frankly, ignorance is not bliss. When you reach your goal and you stop weighing in, you might try to live the good life here and there. You have no cares in the world. Hey, everything's fitting until it doesn't, right? And, you're just doing all these little things and it just starts creeping in here and creeping in there until suddenly like, bam, and you're back where you were before. So we don't want to be back at our starting weight, right? We just want to remember that, a daily weigh-in would be that little bit of a glass check that could help you maybe, I did go a little bit overboard. Oh, you know what? I did travel yesterday and the day before, and I took a long drive. So that could be playing a factor. I mean, I don't want it to create an alarmist mindset for you, but it's something that should bring it up to you because there's a lot of things that can make your weight fluctuate from day to day. I mean, it depends on how much salt you had in your meal the previous day. If you, like I said, we're traveling, we're on a long trip or taking a long drive. If you're constipated, that can also cause things to be fluctuated as far as weight's concerned. If you're in your PMS mode, or if you've even had an increased intake of alcohol, just another reason not to do it, right? Heck, even not sleeping for a good 7 to 8 hours routinely can also negatively affect your weight as well. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. Here's what I want you to remember when this podcast truly is all said and done. And I want you to listen to this part. I'm actually going to just give you a second just to lock in here. Your weight is not your identity. You are more than just your weight. And you have to get past that part. So many people have struggled with that because they just focus on the number and they don't focus on how they feel and how they look. And I think it's really too, it's the feel is so much more in so many ways, emotionally, physically, just being able to adapt easier. There's so many things you could talk about there. So just remember, your weight is not your identity. You are more than just your weight. Now, who would have thought that talking about the topic of hopping on the scale would be so weighty, huh? You knew I was going to say that. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to say that. I couldn't help it. I'm sorry. All right. But it was worth it. I will tell you that. All right. So let's talk takeaways. You know, I'm always going to talk about that. Figure out the best rule of thumb for you. What can you live with? Maybe you do have some problems with body dysmorphism and we want to address that and acknowledge it. Because we want you to maintain good food choices, behavioral changes, making sure you're incorporating those exercise regimens into this new week. I don't want something like a number to derail you from seeing such major improvements with where you are. If you do have a scale, ensure that it's calibrated appropriately. If you don't have one, pack your purse up. Let's go. Let's head out. Let's go buy one. If it's going to positively motivate you. If it's not, forget about it. We don't need it anyway. If you remember anything today, just remember that there are many victories that you can achieve that are not scale related. Thank you. Thank y'all so much. I know it kind of went by fast, huh? And all we did was talk about weight. I mean, that's crazy in weighing yourself. But anyway, thank you so much for spending time with me today. Make sure to check out theprepfort.com for the free resources. I do have some information in the actual workbook that goes with the What's Eating You the What's Eating You book. And make sure to check on the What's Eating You book for the Prep For It steps. I think that's important as well. I hope that you have a great week. And this is one of my sayings that I love to say. You'll hear it in the Kitchen's Essential video. Remember to layer the flavor. I love my peeps. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next time.